All right, welcome everyone to this webinar. Very happy to see you all on. And I will start by just letting you know a little bit about the campaign. We're really excited to have you. My name is Hulda Fahmy with Jubilee Campaign and Set My People Free. And on this call, we also have Dr. Christine, who's co-chair of the Earth Summit Global Campaign to repeal the death penalty for apostasy and blasphemy. And we also have Ambassador Hussain with us, the Ambassador at Large for Religious Freedom for the US. And we're very happy to have Ambassador Jan Figel, former EU Special Envoy. And we have Kola Alapinni, who's an international human rights lawyer currently representing Yahya Sharif Aminu, whom the Nigerian government is detaining and who could face the death penalty. He already helped overturn the death penalty, but it's gone back to the court, so he could face it again. So he's appealing to the Supreme Court. We also have Mansour Borji, who is the director of Articleeighteen, who works on Iran. And we also have a lot of our colleagues who work on these issues. So we're really thankful to have you here. I just wanted to hand it over to Christine, but just briefly, this campaign started actually when we kind of united on the 10th of October, which is World Day Against Death Penalty. But we wanted to raise, many of us work in the religious freedom space, and we work on repealing apostasy and blasphemy laws. And we noted that at least 12 countries have the death penalty for apostasy or blasphemy. And while international law does allow for the death penalty in certain very, very limited cases, there's still so many countries that not only criminalize apostasy and blasphemy, but also sanction the death penalty. And we're thankful for a parliamentarian, Joel Veldkamp from the Netherlands, who kind of pushed for this in the parliament in the Netherlands, and Ambassador Duma, who was the former religious freedom envoy, who also worked on this case. And it was brought to the ERFBA Alliance, where Australia is leading the campaign to repeal the death penalty. They released a statement at the Human Rights Council in March, back in 2022. And then following the summit, this campaign was kind of started. And we're so thankful that Ambassador Hussain has also continued the continue the work with this. He was actually there for our first Earth Summit event on this topic, and he also was there for our Hill briefing, and he's very committed to the repeal of apostasy and blasphemy laws and for the rights of everyone to exercise the freedom of thought, conscience, religion, and belief. So we're so thankful to have so many of you here who've played a key role, and also all the people behind the scenes and those who signed the charter that we shared during the summit, and which my colleague Sydney really worked to prepare and to distribute. But we'll share that more later. I'll hand it over to Christine. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Hulda. It has just been a pleasure and an honor to co-chair the campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws alongside Hulda and Sheikh Mukhtar, who is a survivor himself right now, just welcoming a new baby, got married recently. And so we see that our work really is so instrumental in the lives of so many people around the world, including Mr. Mukhtar. So today I have the distinct honor and pleasure of welcoming you to this webinar where we're focusing on the United Nations resolution for human dignity, which we feel like plays a key role in the convergence of the work here at the campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws. So I'd like to give you just a little bit of background on how this webinar came together, and then of course introduce you to our fantastic speaker lineup today. So just to give you a little bit of background, the campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws, as Hulda mentioned, really last year and the year before that at the UNGA focused on repealing the death penalty for blasphemy and apostasy. We were able to get strengthened language in a resolution on extrajudicial killings, and even get language in there according to a human right, which hadn't been in before. Now this time around in the 78th UNGA, we'll be focusing on continuing to strengthen that language and potentially even adding freedom of religion or belief, thought, or conscience specifically into that bill. We're facing some headwinds this year, and so we'll be able to talk about that a little bit later. And if you're interested in joining us in that UN work, please feel free to join us on the campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws. I currently serve as the Special Assistant for Global Engagement with the International Religious Freedom Secretariat alongside of this campaign work, and was really excited to be able to meet and speak with Ambassador Figel again at the ministerial meeting in Prague, which is sort of where this entire idea came together. So Ambassador Figel is really heading this introduction of the UN resolution to codify a Human Rights Day or Human Dignity Day, and he'll speak a little bit more about that. The Human Dignity Day executive summary of this resolution. So it is proposed that the United Nations General Assembly will adopt a resolution establishing the 10th of June as an international day affirming human dignity for everyone, everywhere, to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and to complement the United Nations observance of Human Rights Day each year on the 10th of December. Again, the purpose of the resolution and designation of Human Dignity Day is to affirm and reiterate the fundamental importance of human rights and to emphasize that equal human dignity of everyone everywhere is a foundational principle of human rights, and that every person is of value and is worthy of respect. And of course, it is a key pillar and something that I know Ambassador at large for religious freedom under the State Department, Rashad Hussain, also supports. So I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that Ambassador Hussain and I hail from the same town of Plano, Texas, where I'm coming to you today. So just a little background before Ambassador Hussain speaks. First, he is the Ambassador at Large of International Religious Freedom. He serves as principal advisor to the Secretary and advisor to the President of the United States on religious freedom, conditions, and policy. He leads the department's efforts to monitor religious freedom abuses, persecution, and discrimination worldwide. He also oversees policies and programs to address these abuses, these concerns, and works to build diverse and dynamic partnerships, of course, with the broadest range of civil society, including our campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy with equitable and meaningful inclusion of faith actors globally. Prior to this appointment, Ambassador Hussain was the director of the National Security Council's Partnership of Global Engagement Directorate. From 2015 to 2021, he served as senior counsel to the Department of Justice National Security Division. President Obama appointed Hussain to serve as his special envoy to the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or the OIC, and U.S. Special Envoy for Strategic Counterterrorism Communications and Deputy Associate White House Counsel. And as you'll note, our campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws has called on the continuing 11 Organization of Islamic Countries to repeal the death penalty for blasphemy and apostasy. And I am so honored to welcome you once again, sir. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Christine. Good to see you. Thank you so much for all the work that you do, and great to hear that you are in Plano. I still consider it home in many ways. A lot of family there, and was just there for a few days over the holidays. So thank you again, and thank you to all of you who are joining us. It's really an honor to share this time with so many distinguished scholars and leaders, and I'm looking forward to sharing more information about what we're doing as an office, as a government, to protect religious freedom, and also to learn from all of you and to strategize on what we can be doing better. I'm especially pleased to share this virtual stage with Kola Alapinni, who I had the chance to spend some time with last week, again, after seeing him at previous ministerials. He was awarded the International Religious Freedom Award by Secretary Blinken for his really incredible work that he has been doing, defending those charged with violating blasphemy laws. So appreciate again all of your efforts, and honored to spend some more time with you. This work is really important to me. In many ways, it's been formative for my entire career. The first assignment that I had when I came in to the international diplomatic world was on combating apostasy and blasphemy laws. You may remember that for many years, the OIC had led a resolution at the UN on defamation of religions. And back in 2010, when I came into the position of Special Envoy to the OIC, we worked with OIC countries, really one by one, to move from that approach which sanctioned blasphemy laws, it supported criminalization of speech, to an approach that was designed to address the underlying causes of intolerance and discrimination, to improve educational efforts, without going down the path of criminalization of speech and supporting blasphemy laws. And we were able to get to the Istanbul Process Resolution 1618. And there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that we maintain that resolution as it's passed every year, and to make sure we're carrying out the spirit of it and to re-energize it. So looking forward to continuing to work with you on that process as well. Blasphemy laws, those laws that criminalize free expression, such as the ones that Kola is fighting against in Nigeria, are amongst the oldest and most common tools for repressing the freedom of religion or belief across the world. People in more than 95 countries live under governments that criminalize the expression of ideas that are deemed to be insulting to mainstream religion, religious symbols, religious adherents, leaders, institutions, or other entities or institutions or figures that are considered sacred. In many cases, what's written in the law is actually only the beginning of the problem, because officials and members of society often use the continued existence and enforcement of laws criminalizing blasphemy, apostasy, conversion, proselytization to suppress peaceful dissent and silence the voices of religious minorities. Often such laws are then formulated and then language is used that is vague or broad, allowing for arbitrary or inconsistent enforcement that targets specific beliefs or ethnic groups. And often blasphemy laws serve as a pretext for violence, including mob violence in some cases against people on the basis of their religion or their ethnicity. So even we've observed that the most linguistically precise and carefully applied laws against blasphemy or apostasy can run counter to the notion of religious freedom. And that's because freedom of religion or belief and freedom of expression are not at odds. They are not merely important as rights taken separately. These two fundamental freedoms actually strengthen one another, and limitations on one invariably lead to repression of the other. On the face of it, my words may seem counterintuitive, especially when there are laws protecting religious ideas from being mocked, insulted, or disavowed. However, freedom of religion or belief is not about the ideas, objects, or symbols themselves. The freedom is about individuals and protecting their rights and protecting protection of and respect of freedom of religion or belief stems from and serves to protect, quote, the inherent dignity of all members of the human family, as the UN Declaration of Human Rights so eloquently states. Article 18 of the Declaration, as you know, speaks directly to the freedom of religion or belief and has been the heart of the movement for international religious freedom for 75 years and counting. It says, quote, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change one's religion or belief, and freedom alone, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest one's religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance, end quote. Freedom of religion or belief at its core is not about protecting religious ideas from criticism or insult. It is about protecting the individual's right to believe and practice by themselves or with like-minded community. That includes the freedom not to believe in any religious worldview at all. It includes the freedom to grow, learn, and change as each of us does throughout our own lives. Whether that growth brings us deeper into engagement with the religious tradition which we're born in, or takes us in different directions our ancestors might not have contemplated, the freedom we fight for is one that dignifies this human capacity for growth, this inherent human nature that unites all of us. And of course, none of this is possible when we sacrifice freedom of expression through laws that restrict discussion of ideas. When we give in to the temptation to censor speech that often offends religious belief, we stop seeing the inherent human dignity of others and instead idolize something else. And it's really important to note, of course, that there are times when speech is offensive and even hateful and provocative. And it's important to note that when it's necessary, we must stand up and condemn such speech and counter that speech with better speech. But what we have to be very careful about is going down a path in which we criminalize that speech, because that can be used in ways that actually negatively impact religious minorities and others in society. So these concepts are rooted and important and worthy of protection, but their importance is rooted in their role in allowing people to express their beliefs and values. One of the reasons laws that criminalize blasphemy are so widespread is that in different forms, they stem from two distinct impulses. First is an authoritarian impulse to control all thought, all expression, all belief, and all behavior. When we say that respect for human rights is vital to the global competition between democracy and autocracy, it is this kind of abuse that we recognize. But on the other hand, there are laws that restrict freedom and free expression in some countries that value democracy, recognize their diversity, and seek to create a space for respect and coexistence. In those cases, there's a false premise that the freedom of religion or belief and the freedom of expression are at odds with one another, that to protect one requires limiting the other. And that historic concept has proven not to be true. It's important to recognize that both of these freedoms complement one another, and we have to protect one in order to make sure that we're protecting the other, while at the same time recognizing, of course, that there are times when that freedom of expression can be used to condemn speech that is disrespectful and even discriminatory and provocative, and in some cases can incite people in ways that ultimately lead to violence. So I believe that limiting freedom of expression increases resentment and discontent and decreases both societal and political stability. Robust support for free expression strengthens democracy and strengthens the freedom of religion and belief of everyone living in diverse societies. Protecting such freedoms may not always, of course, be comfortable. It may not always be easy, but it is the right thing to do, and it is just. And acknowledging human dignity means acknowledging our capacity to do what is hard, uncomfortable, just, and right. So we look forward to working with all of you to strike the right balance, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to protect this expression. My own training is, as you all may know, is in the law, and I've been working in my time in government, of course, to uphold our Constitution in the United States, of which one of the most important principles is freedom of expression, the First Amendment. At the same time, we also acknowledge, as I mentioned earlier, that there are times when that freedom can be used in ways that can be disrespectful, discriminatory, and so we must do everything that we can to make sure that when such speech occurs, that we condemn it and bring forth alternative speech. And then, of course, when that speech crosses the line and meets that threshold where it becomes illegal, or there are forms of expression which become illegal, and of course there's a high threshold in our system, then of course we have laws, criminal laws, to deal with those situations as well. But it is important that we note that there is a certain threshold to meet those that have been articulated by courts here in the United States, and so we're always available to have those discussions as a part of our trainings that we do around the world. We aspire to make sure that those distinctions are understood, and that we're doing everything that we can, even in difficult circumstances, to protect freedom of expression and the rights of all people and the security and safety of all people as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Those are great distinctions that you mentioned. I think that is some of the fear of limiting speech, around the world, that there wouldn't be any protections. And so I'm glad that you illuminated that for us this time. Again, thank you so much for joining. It's always an honor to be with you. We're going to transition now. I would love to introduce my friend and colleague, Ambassador Jan Figel. Jan and I had a brilliant time in Prague recently at the International Religious Freedom or Belief Alliance ministerial meeting, which took place in November, right after the American Thanksgiving holiday. We were so excited to be there. It was kind of like living in a real life snow globe, if you can imagine that. I absolutely loved just the hospitality of the Prague government, of the Czech government, and really was excited to be there. Ambassador Figel is just a stellar hero in many respects for this religious freedom movement, and I'd like to introduce him now. He's a Slovakian politician who has been heavily involved in Slovakian and European affairs. Most notably for our group, from 2016 to 2019, he served as special envoy for the promotion of freedom of religion outside the EU. The former European Commissioner for Education, Training, and Culture, Mr. Figel has also held other notable positions, such as the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and was the chief negotiator for Slovakia's accession to the EU. Ambassador Figel started his career when he joined the Christian Democratic Movement Party in 1990 and was elected 2 years later as MP to the National Council of the Slovak Republic, serving on its Foreign Affairs Committee and becoming a member of Slovakia's delegation to the Council of Europe. In 1998, he left his parliamentary seat and was appointed Secretary of State of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At this post, he also served and led Slovakia's accession negotiations with the European Union. As State Secretary, Ambassador Figel was also the representative to the Slovak government in the European Convention, which was drafting the European Constitution at the time. And if that wasn't exciting enough, from 2004 to 2009, Ambassador Figel served on the European Commission as Commissioner for Education, Training, Culture, and Multilingualism, with a brief stint as Commissioner of Enterprise and Information Society. Ambassador Figel stepped down from his commission post in 2009 following his election as leader of the Christian Democratic Movement of Slovakia. And we are just so thrilled that he has continued to be a stellar voice in this movement. He is leading the way and recently had an opportunity to speak at the United Nations headquarters at New York regarding this resolution on codifying a day of human dignity. And we're really excited about the convergence of both this resolution and the campaign to eliminate blasphemy and apostasy laws. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. I hope you can all hear me. I wish you successful and happy and creative new year. I'm glad to support the work of the International Religious Freedom Secretariat, and Christina is now representing this civil society institution, very important for the summit next week in Washington. I hope to meet some of you and surely probably Ambassador Rashad Hussain. I recall years of work in tandem with David Saperstein and then Sam Brownback, and now I'm glad to follow your introduction or presentation, Ambassador Rashad. What to add, or I would come from different angle to the same conclusions. Core of or base of peace in today's world is justice. Without justice, no peace. And core of justice is respect to human rights of everyone, everywhere. And of course, if we look deeper in time of divisions, polarization, conflicts, and wars, the roots of or foundational principle of our rights is our dignity. Dignity is mentioned in the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights 5 times, not only in the preamble, but also in articles, 5 times. In time of Second World War, there were only 5 countries having expression of dignity in their constitutions. After war, or currently, we have over 160 160 United Nations member states with constitutional expression on dignity, including the largest country, India. I think that's very important, not only a signal, but common ground. And we need to get from common ground to common future, which is peaceful future, more humane 21st century. Therefore, I'm working with a group of like-minded experts and leaders on promotion of human dignity within the important institutions like United Nations, whether in Geneva or in New York, because we need to deepen or promote culture of human dignity. Why it is so important? Because my dignity is source of my rights, but also my duties. Without duties, how can I claim my rights? Freedom without responsibility is not sustainable. It's even self-destructive. These are two sides of one coin. A valid coin has two sides. And I mention it because in nowadays mentality, or in the last decades, new generations have been grown in mentality of one-sided coin or relations. I want my rights. And we have to get back to the balance, because without balance, we get into crisis. Ambassador Rashad Hussain spoke about balance, rebalancing. And this is precisely ethical balance we need to reconfirm. And therefore, 5 years ago, at the 70th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, we have initiated this declaration on human dignity for everyone, everywhere, with the title or subtitle, the Punta del Este, because it was signed in the most eastern part of Uruguay, which is Western hemicycle. And this connection between East and West is expression for universality and globality of this quest for human dignity for all, everywhere, for everyone, everywhere. More than 700 signatories are under this declaration. It followed by several important, nice, inspirational publications like this Points of Light, very nice table book with quotes on human dignity, and also textbooks on human dignity in international relations. Just to share, sorry, maybe here, yeah. So it's not a presentation of all important messages, but why I say, because after 5 years, we got closer to what Christina asked me to speak about a bit, initiative to table and to adopt United Nations General Assembly potential resolution on Human Dignity Day. We need to educate, to promote, to spread awareness about more balanced approach to human rights and human duties. If we look into the Universal Declaration, there are 30 articles, many rights, various rights, important rights. And these many rights include also two very humble duties in terms of text or length of expression. It's in Article 1 and in Article 29. The first one speaks about duty to behave in the spirit of brotherhood to one another. And at the end, there is duty to fulfill obligations or duties towards a community in which we live in. So these two, towards the other and towards the community duties, rebalance the whole set of other articles or all human rights. I say it as former EU Special Envoy for freedom of religion and belief, in this tandem with US Ambassador at Large, because there is very deep and strong connection between freedom of religion or belief and human dignity. Because FORB, as we say in abbreviation, is expression of freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion. And this is the most deep or deepest expression of human freedom, personal freedom. And this deep human freedom is related to human conviction, belief. And if this freedom is respected, then the subsequent freedoms of expression, of press, media, association, freedom of assembly, freedom of property, will be or should be respected as well. But if the primary freedom, which is freedom of religion or belief, is not respected, then the secondary, tertiary issues surely will not be respected. And therefore, I think that we need to raise this awareness to promote education on importance and principality of human dignity of everyone everywhere. And I hope that we, with support of like-minded countries, we may get this resolution this year, 2024, tabled and then adopted as a great contribution and recommitment to the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope it will be a continuous, not only dialogue, but movement for more humane 21st century. Thank you.
Absolutely. It has been an honor to have you join us this morning. Senator Figel, thank you so much for your work, and we look forward to joining forces with you to continue to see this resolution into fruition at the 78th UNGA this year. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass the mic over to my co-chair, Holder Femi, now to introduce Kola Alapinni, who is an international human rights attorney from Nigeria, and as Ambassador Hussain mentioned, just received a phenomenal award from the State Department. Go ahead, Kola.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Ambassador Jan Figel and Ambassador Hussain, for your really great remarks. So, I mean, the reason we're here is because people are living their lives, and they are being targeted by these laws, and their dignity is being violated. And one of the people who has had their dignity violated is Yahya Sharif Aminu. And I know also Kola shared during the Human Rights Council last year about the case of Deborah Emmanuel. Nigeria is one of the countries with the death penalty, even if it's a secular state. And in 12 northern states, it has the death penalty. And this, not only can people be sentenced to death, but also people are executed outside of the extrajudicially executed, and creates a lot of problems. So we want to hear from Kola about the situation in Nigeria, also about the case that you're representing. But what does it mean for human dignity to, I mean, how do you see the role of these anti-blasphemy laws and the death penalty for anti-blasphemy laws in getting justice for victims of violence because of them exercising their religion and belief?
Thank you very much, Hulda and Christine. Thank you, Ambassador Hussain. It was nice seeing you and receiving the award from the State Department. Thank you very much. We didn't see that coming, but we welcome it all the same. And thank you, my good friends on the panel, those who I have met before, those who I haven't met. I hope I meet you very soon. You talked about the indignity suffered by people who have been put up for blasphemy. I also would like to add that some people actually suffer indignity even if they've not committed any blasphemous accounts. You'll remember the case of Rhoda Jatau. What did Rhoda Jatau do? She's a housewife in Borji State. It's close to Plateau, where the killings took place on Christmas Day. She's a mother of 5. And she tweeted that the murderers of Deborah Samuel Yakubu had been literally set free by the court. What happened was let me contrast what happened between Yahya Aminu Sharif's case and Omar Farouk Bashir, the minor that was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. Thankfully, we got that quashed. What happened between them and what happened with the Jatao's murderers? When Yahya Aminu Sharif was arrested and Omar Farouk, a fatwa was literally passed by the Northern Muslim ulama in Northern Nigeria and Kano, saying that no Muslim lawyer should come out to represent either of them. And if they did, they were not true Muslims. Also, our colleagues in Northern Nigeria, whether Christian or Muslim, were fearful for their lives because the mob could come and burn down your house or destroy your office, or your family will be in danger. And we have proof of this. In 2015, 2 of my Muslim colleagues on the legal team that represented Yahya Aminu Sharif were defending a group of gentlemen who were arrested for blasphemy and charged to court. Because the mob felt that the court may have some sympathies for these people, the mob charged into the courtroom and set the court on fire, set the police station on fire, and everybody ran for their lives. Eventually, the court sat in a secret location, which I can now reveal to you. The court sat inside Kano prisons. That was about the most secure place in Kano State to, continue with their proceedings. That tells you why a couple of our colleagues refused to come out. It wasn't as if they didn't want to defend Yahya Aminu Sharif or Omar Farouk, but it was the fear for their lives was real. If the mob can go and attack the courtroom and burn down the police station, what can't they do to your office or to the house where you live? They did it to Yahya Aminu Sharif. The mob went to his house and literally destroyed it. Even when the father was willing to submit him to the Islamic police. So when Deborah Samuel Yakubu was attacked by our friends, our classmates, our colleagues, and a few other unscrupulous elements, the security also ran away. They were initially trying to protect her, but they were overwhelmed. So the security of the teacher training just faded away for their lives. And it took, one throw of the stone there, one stick there, till Deborah fell. And eventually someone found petrol, someone lit the match, and Deborah was murdered. In contrast, the police arrested 2 or 3 people and charged them for a much flimsy offense, public disturbance, instead of charging them for murder. So that tells you the sympathy of the state towards people who are trying to protect the regime, the Islamic regime. And a professor of law led 33 other lawyers. 34 lawyers turned up in court to argue for their bail application, whereas nobody turned up for Yahya Aminu Sharif. We have what they call the Legal Aid Council in Nigeria, which is a government body where if you don't have any money, the state arranges for you to have a defense. Even the lawyers of the state who were afraid for their lives, and they didn't turn up for Yahya Aminu Sharif and Omar Farouk. It's in the court records because the court adjourned 3 times. And they sent messages to the Legal Aid Council for the states to provide representation. But no lawyer dared to show their face. And eventually, the Sharia court judge convicted without legal representation. He was under pressure from the Muslim ulamas who thought he was having sympathy for Yahya Amini Sharif and Omar Farouk, and he committed a legal blunder by sentencing a man to death without legal representation, which of course worked in our favor when we went on appeal. So when we went on, eventually, to conclude the story of Brother Jatau, the state refused to prosecute because it was left in the hands of the police prosecutors. So the police refused to turn up in court about 3 or 4 times, and the court kept on adjourning. Eventually, the matter was struck out of court for lack of diligent prosecution. That was what got Brother Jatau in trouble. So this housewife of 5 children in Borji State, she's not a lawyer, she's not a journalist, she's not very learned, you know, just minimum education, maybe primary or secondary school, got outraged by what was happening about 200 kilometers away in Kano State and put it on Facebook that the killers of Deborah Samuel Yakubu have been set free by the court. And Bauchi State arrested her for public disturbance, statements capable of, you know, inciting the public. She was put in police detention, eventually sent to prison, not by the court. It wasn't a prison sentence. She was just remanded pending trial, and she spent 18 months. 18 months for saying something on Facebook, saying the truth, saying that. And I just gave you those 2 scenarios to show you what happens when the state endorses what is happening and essentially protects murderers, and they clamp down on people who try to shine the torchlight on what's happening. On Yahya Amini Sharif's case, I narrowed down to just about 4 simple topics. When we did the first appeal at the High Court, the first appeal was when the case came from the Sharia court. After the Sharia court's decision, we went to the High Court in Kano State. We filed the appeal, even though the death sentence was overturned. The court made a very outrageous statement and said, because one of the sections of the Constitution which we cited was Section 10, and Section 10 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says that no state government or federal government must endorse and essentially must promote one religion above the other. Essentially what we're saying is that Nigeria has no state religion. But in practice, what Northern Nigeria was trying to do was to endorse Sharia law and promote it as a state religion. Otherwise, why would the governor of a state like Kano State wear the uniform of the Islamic police, you know, and address them and say, oh, you have to confiscate more alcoholic drinks, we'll reward you for that? Essentially saying that the state can destroy other people's businesses because people who sell alcoholic drinks, you know, are running a business. Interestingly, Kano State and in Northern Nigeria collect value-added tax on alcoholic drinks. They don't say no to the taxes. They collect it and then they destroy the drink. So we said, you know, all these violations of going on and the endorsement, the behavior of Kano State is an endorsement of the state. They're endorsing the state religion. And the judges said, oh no, it's fancy, it's an ideal. So we appealed to the Court of Appeal, which was the second highest court in Nigeria. It is the second highest court in Nigeria. And the appeal court rebuked the High Court strongly and said it is mandatory. Section there was for protection of all religions in Nigeria. So we won that very significant victory. First time that it was going to be stated so openly by superior courts in Nigeria. However, the judges could not agree amongst themselves. If you read the judgment of the Court of Appeal, they couldn't agree amongst themselves if Nigeria was a secular nation or a multi-religious nation or not. However, it gives me great pleasure when I was listening to the Attorney General of Nigeria in Geneva during the UPR session, where he firmly stated that Nigeria is a secular state. That's the first time in a very long time that a senior government official is coming out openly to say such a thing at the federal level. We also, are seeking to obtain clarification from the Supreme Court. Sorry, I think I already dealt with that. We're seeking to clarify, because there's a provision in the Constitution of Nigeria which limits Sharia law to just Islamic personal law. We've asked the Supreme Court to interpret this, and if the Supreme Court does give a judgment on that, then everybody knows where we stay, because curiously, we say we're a secular nation, but Nigeria is a member of the Organization of Islamic Countries. So how can we be a member of the OIC and still be a secular nation? We also are talking about the rights, the dignity which Ambassador Jan Figel was talking about. Section 34 of Nigerian Constitution promotes the rights to dignity. So how can we have in the 12 northern states the Sharia law, which has been codified into this codification of Sharia law, it doesn't have the same strength as the Constitution. Supreme law. So you now put in the law at the state level. If you do this, 40 lashes. If you steal, we cut off your right hand. If you steal again, we cut off your left leg. If you commit adultery, you'll be stoned to death. And we are now saying all these are violations to Section 34, which talks about the right to dignity. I just made inference to that because Ambassador Figel spoke about it. We also reminded Nigeria of our obligations under international law, the ICCPR, the Child Rights Convention, etc., and General Comments 34 on Article 19. So that's the summary of where we are at the Supreme Court. We hope Ambassador Hussain will use his magical powers to press on the government to give us a speedy date for hearing the case of Yahya Amini Sheriff. Is very, very important. We know that, we had a very tumultuous election cycle, and the Supreme Court put an embargo on all cases to deal with election matters. And we've decided the presidential, the governor's one. I think we have just about 4 left, which will be decided this week. So probably, you may want to help us remind the Secretary of State to raise this up with our president. And this very important case is quickly heard. Thank you very much, and I hope I didn't take too much time.
Thank you, Kola. It's always very insightful to listen to you and to hear about the situation, and also to hear about the legal situation, and also what an important job you're doing as a human rights defender for those affected by blasphemy laws. And also, I mean, we need to understand the context to know how we can help in these situations. So thank you for all the work that you're doing, and we hope that the Supreme Court will really look at the case and do exercise apply the Constitution as it should be. One country that does not have a constitution that you can fully rely on is the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we've been following the news, we've heard about the protests, but it kind of goes up and down. But we want to hear from Mansour Borji, who is dealing with this on a daily basis. Article 18 works for the rights of Christians in Iran, many of which are actually former Muslims, and so they are affected by the apostasy law, which has the death penalty sanction in Iran. And I know yesterday we heard the sad news of Mohammed Gobadlu. I don't know, my Persian is not that great, but for exercising the freedom of conscience. So we welcome your remarks, and if the ambassadors have time, we might go over a little bit just to have some questions with you, if that Dr. Christine will lead. But we'll welcome Mansour. Thank you so much for being here and for really, welcome. Here you go.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I'll try to be short and concise. Wonderful remarks and great insights from Ambassador Hussain, Ambassador Figel, and honorable panelists. I'm risking here to state the obvious, but I find it always helpful to set the scene in some context as to the context of Iran and how it relates to the apostasy laws and human dignity. You very helpfully referred to the most recent incident of execution just yesterday. One of the protesters was among I think he was the 9th protester of the recent popular uprising in Iran who was executed. And on average, Iran for the last year has executed 2 people every day. And when it comes to the issue of apostasy, Iran does not fit into the category of countries that have codified laws against apostasy, although there were attempts about this in 2008. But there are indirect laws that there are important provisions in the Iranian constitutions that create a de facto stance on the punishment of apostates. Firstly, it's the Article 12 of the Iranian constitution that declares the country's official religion is Islam, and the Shia Islam is the chosen doctrine. Other mainstream Islamic schools of law are given the full respect according to the constitution to exercise their tradition. However, apostasy to any other religion, according to the penal implied laws, articles of 168 and 167 is punishable. So in matters that the civil law is quiet and the Islamic jurists or the judges and the revolutionary courts do not have access to direct codified laws to penalize apostasy, they can refer to the fatwas or the religious edicts by credible grand ayatollahs. And in this case, I think what this panel and the international community, NGOs can do is, I think, something that I'd like to highlight here, and the change and the difference that it can make in many people's lives. So in 1994, we had, for instance, Reverend Mehdi Dibaj, who spent 9 years in prison on the charges of apostasy. Eventually, when his sentence was to be carried out, he was a Christian from a Muslim background. The charges were dropped following an international outcry. Although he was later on, 6 months later, executed extrajudicially, but nonetheless, the significance of international pressure, reminding of countries like Iran of their obligations and the sensitivities around this, makes those governments careful about using that provisions in the constitution to apply apostasy punishment and death penalty. In other cases, we have in recent years, in 2010, we had Yusuf Nadarkhani, another Christian convert, who was sentenced to death, yet again, because of the international outcry and demands of the international community, Iran dropped charges against him. Later, of course, he was rearrested and spent more than 5 years in prison on different charges, but related to his Christian faith and activities. So, but what is significant for us is the role of the international institutions and human rights organizations to highlight these cases and remind states that are signatory to international conventions and including ICCPR, that freedom of religion and belief, as it was very helpfully reminded to us by Ambassador Hussain, they have to apply those guarantees and safeguard them in their countries. Just at the end of 2022, a judge who was appointed by the Iranian parliament to decide in a expert commission on the Islamic Penal Code, which had an article on penalizing apostasy by death, stated in an interview that it was this particular clause in the Islamic Penal Code was supposed to be included, but it was left out for the fear of international pressure. So right now, with converts constituting basically the majority of the Christian community in Iran, although unrecognized, apostasy remains a central concern. And that is not just death penalty, but of course, safeguarding of human dignity and the right to choose a religion or belief. It can have other pressures and intimidations by the states who are violating those rights, including, of course, employment rights, including freedom of speech, as it was mentioned, but the power could be abused in many different ways. Every year we publish a report on the situation of Christians in Iran. This is, of course, the 2023. I have a hard time to somehow show this. The new one for 2004 will be launched just in a month's time, 20th of February, which highlights many instances where individuals, mainly converts, rights to freedom of religion or belief is being violated in multiple ways. And I invite you to join us if you can, if you're in the UK, but otherwise we'll be happy to send you copies of these reports. I hope I've not overstepped my time boundaries, but over to you.
Thank you, Mansour. Thank you very much for sharing about Iran and keeping it on the agenda and keeping it on our minds. And like what we see is people are just living their life. They're choosing what they believe. They're following their conscience. They're not. So the states have a choice. Either they're going to let them live peacefully and with dignity, or they're going to criminalize it and spend all their efforts and energy on targeting people just for choosing how they want to believe, what they want to believe, who they want to love, who they want to follow, what religion or belief they want to practice. So I'm very impressed by the courage of the Iranian people and their willingness to live according to their conscience, regardless of the state not recognizing that inherent human right or their inherent human dignity. So now I think we'll go over to our question time. Like we mentioned in the beginning this year, I mean, in addition to the human, oh, okay, sorry, I got a little text message here from Ambassador saying he has to step out. If you just want to say any last words, Ambassador, or we just wave and say thank you for your remarks.
I just want to thank everyone again for all of the work that's happening. This is difficult work that doesn't yield the changes that we want to see overnight. And in fact, in some respects, we are the last line of defense as things head in a worse direction. So I just want to be very open and acknowledging of the fact that we have to continue the fight. We go through these periods in human history where we make progress, and then there's a response to that progress, and there's pushback. But we have to just continue to keep fighting that fight. And the last thing that I want to say is that I think sometimes our efforts are misunderstood, and even religious communities around the world see us doing something counterproductive toward religious freedom. And I think one of the things that we can always be mindful of, which is consistent, I think, with our work, is to just always be respectful and acknowledge the fact that some of the expression that's out there is a form of hatred, and that should be condemned. The recent burnings of the Quran, for example, and other holy texts, we condemn those. So it's not a matter of being against religion. In fact, the principles of protecting religious freedom, respecting religion, but then also respecting the rights of those who may have other beliefs are all consistent goals. And I think that the more we can find alignment in our work, the better that will be. So thank you again. Thank you to Hulda and Christine for organizing us, and to Kola and to Mansour and Ambassador Figel and the other speakers. We're really looking forward to staying in touch and continuing our work together.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
What a wonderful time that we've had here today, just reminding ourselves of our very important work, and just really excited to have been joined by such heroes in this movement. So I think because we're over time at this point, Ambassador Figel would just like to give you an opportunity to share with us as either civil society participants, NGOs, or even parliamentarians and other state officials that will be listening to this afterwards. Can you give us a little preview as to what the state of affairs is with the passage of the resolution on human dignity and how we might be able to be of service, how we might be able to be in getting the passage of that? Do you feel like we are going to see the passage of the Human Dignity Day? How can we be involved?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sequencia. I want to share answer on what you say or ask now, some sort of feedback or update, and also to answer the question which was put in the chat, because I think it would seem like we avoid or don't care about this sort of dialogue there. So on the Human Dignity Day resolution, just before this seminar, webinar, we had a Zoom call with several countries or diplomats from several countries on this initiative. There are countries which are already, I could say, friends of Human Dignity Day initiative. When time comes, they will decide whether yes or no is their position, formal position. But countries like Uruguay, Indonesia, Gambia, Kenya, Slovakia participated today in this exchange of views. We will have a special event next Tuesday in Washington, D.C. during summit. So it's also an invitation or signal on importance of this point on overall agenda. I think what we need to achieve, and you mentioned it in your question, is a global religious freedom movement where civil society, governmental, parliamentary forces, organizations, entities work together towards the same direction, towards the same objective. I would love to say, and please understand me correctly, we need a religious freedom global climate change, which means understanding of importance and real action, because millions of people, or hundreds of millions, better to say, suffer from lack of religious freedom. It's form of oppression, persecution, discrimination, etc. This is worldwide reality. And then there is a question. We will move relatively soon until springtime from discussion time into formal tabling of this draft resolution, which is ready. And then process in General Assembly will lead towards vote or consensus, I think, on this important initiative. But please allow me to say something on the point on going to paradise, or question is, how long do we defend God? Does God need someone to defend him, etc.? God doesn't need our defense, but he sent us to defend those who are defenseless, voiceless, helpless. And that's important. Religious freedom is important for believers and non-believers, for all. Because if we understand religious freedom as important only for religious communities, it's a wrong, false interpretation. Religious freedom is important for people from A to Z, for atheists up to Zoroastrians, if I may say so. So it should be issue for all. And once again, I would like to encourage all, not only in this webinar, but all people of goodwill to raise voice, to say what is important in our time of persecution or conflicts. I was religious freedom special envoy, and I was able with my voice, without any weapon, without real power, to defend and to help to get out from prison to several people, including Yusuf Nadarkhani in Iran. It was in 2012, if I recall correctly, when he was sentenced to death. then man in Cuba who is living now in Florida, one woman in Pakistan, several persons in Sudan. For me, it's a great confirmation. My voice matters. I can do something. And that's true for everybody. And the last message from my side today, sorry, I think it's important conclusion. Evil is so successful and influential today because it has many strong allies, but these allies are omnipresent. It's indifference, ignorance, and fear. If we don't care because it's far away, it's not here, it's there. If we don't know what's going on and we don't learn, we are not interested even. And then if we are scared to do something or to say something, at least not in my name. So I encourage all of you and your circles to stand up, to be active, to be informed on what's going on, and to have courage to do something for those who are defenseless or helpless. Thank you. All the best.
There's no better way to end the webinar than the words that you've just spoken, sir. So we will allow you to have the last word. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Enormous thank you to our panelists who have been able to share their lives experience and their life's work with us today. We will put our contact information in the show notes. So if you so choose to be able to join us in this fight, please feel free to reach out to either Hulda or myself. We would love to welcome you into the movement. Again, thank you so much, and we will see you all again very soon.